Welcome to Spokes and Strategy, Marketing the Bicycle with Brandon Morphew and Chris Mehlman of Miso Partners. Welcome to Spokes and Strategy. It's Brandon Morphew and Chris Mehlman, and we are excited to get into some end of the year thoughts, reflections, ideas, thinking about what's worked, what's hasn't worked, what's different about 2025, and maybe what we should think about as we're rolling into 2026. We're going to break up this into 3 episodes. So Chris and I we're having a chat here in the middle of December, and we're going to be away for a couple of holidays over the next 2 weeks. So we thought we would chat about some different topics. This first one we're going to get into is around technology, and I'm excited to talk about it because this is such an interesting space. The bicycle is very, very plain. We've talked about how the bicycle hasn't changed over the years. So the technology has. There's a lot of things you can do, whether that's the technology in your bicycle or all of the tech, hardware and software. That's the apps that are around the bicycle. So good to see you, Chris.
Yeah, good to see you. Yeah, it is a pretty amazing thing that the bicycle itself is still the same idea, but just the tech that goes into it and powers it has changed a lot. And I think the bigger thing is the tech that has enabled community connection. So that's I think Strava, even Rabbit GPS, Zwift, there's various meetup apps that have come and gone over time. But yeah, there's the idea that there's a social media network for not just cyclists but athletes is something even 20 years ago would have been like what that's wild. But yeah, it's a thing now.
Yeah, it's something else. And so I guess, just thinking about like what is there a technology as a consumer that you use that you find to be like either you can't live without it or it's just a joy, like it's something that really makes your experience better.
Yeah, I mean, there's three training peaks from a training side. I'd say that's more niche, and the two that are more important are Strava and Rabbit GPS. For me, it's like those two combined for routing. As far as applications go, are yeah, you can't live without them. For better or worse, for me, it's just cool to be able to open up a map and really easily just create a route and go follow it. And then I have a hammerhead GPS computer, so that allows you to follow it. And those have become essentially like phones. And so just that level of technology, whereas before you almost were limited in this, especially out where I live in Colorado, you almost were limited as to where you would go because if you got lost in the mountains, you didn't have any way to find your way out. That was a problem. Now it's like it's not a problem. Or you needed some sort of special GPS unit that was super hard to figure out and really clunky and didn't have the base maps on them. But now it's like, oh, okay, well you can find a good route. You can create a route on Strava based off of popularity. So Strava has an unbelievable amount of data on it. In fact, I've had this conversation many times how cities, and I don't know if this is the case, but cities should be using it for city planning because there's no better way to do a study on commuter traffic or pedestrian traffic and or in terms of the recreational side, but even people longer commutes than using Strava. And so, yeah, you can go and if you click point A and point B, it's going to take you on the route that most people ride, which is generally the safest route or the best route. And so I think that's really cool. Whereas before, it was just second guessing. And then with Drive GPS, they have a similar feature, but they also have Street View. So you can go and I'll do this. I'll look at and be like, okay, this looks like a safe road. Or somewhere in the mountains, if there's like a photo somebody took nearby and put up on Google, you can see it. So yeah, really cool features. What about
Yeah,
you? Are you, yeah,
yeah, totally. Yeah. So Strava to me is, I would say it's a double-edged sword for me because I really do enjoy it, but I sometimes get caught up in the social media side of it. So I have I've been like a premium account holder for years. I've turned it off on multiple occasions and sort of stepped away from the kind of the social aspect of it. But then got back in. I love that it helps me track, what activities I've done. I love, like, riding with people and having those routes sort of be, you know, connected socially. So I enjoy it very much in that sense. I was just thinking, as you were talking about, so I use the routes from what's the Ride with GPS, that's like regularly, and I use it, the turn by turn directions, and a lot of different routes that I do. It's, I'll put one, my non, and these headphones have the transparency, which is pretty good. It actually works really well. I think it helps, but I'll put one in. I don't do both, and I'll keep the one that's roadside, just my ear. But it is, as you were saying that, you were talking about Ride with GPS, and I was thinking Google. I use Google Maps regularly when I'm like, when I need to get from. I use my bike for transportation often. Like, it's like if I'm gonna sub out a trip, like that's pretty local, or even sometimes a little bit further. I'll go somewhere, and I'm like, I'm gonna ride. That seems like a healthy way to go. And I'll use Google. Google's got that option for a bike when you're planning your routes, and it works. It does turn by turn directions. It's really good. So I think the technology is amazing. I just, and I use my Apple Watch. I have a Garmin. I use my Garmin on the road, but I usually just use Strava on my Apple Watch, and does my heart rate. It's pretty accurate. I've had Whoop in the past, and it's good. But I find the Apple Watch to be, kind of a better interface, and gives me a lot more data that I enjoyed. So yeah, I think if I had to pick one thing, it's probably the Apple Watch. Frankly, that's because I love that I can take calls. It's connected to my phone, all that jazz. But yeah, Strava's fantastic. Trail Forks Discovery, like when I'm in a new place, and I love traveling on my bike, for the mountain bike especially, but I really do love, discovering new trails and seeing what's out there. And Trail Forks is just fantastic for opening up, new places to ride locally, even, looking and seeing where people are riding.
Yeah.
So those are all good. I think, uh, you know, for me, these are just amazing tools. Like the consumer has so much power in their hands, and this wasn't always the case. It's relatively new. Like you said, you used to have your Garmin, and then maybe even a satellite connected to be able to get around and not get lost. So I think for a consumer, it's pretty amazing. But it's a it's a lot to keep track of. It can be a little bit overwhelming sometimes from a technology
Yeah,
point of view.
totally. And I think like there's also, what's been interesting to see with Strava is how they developed over time. So how they've released features. So, it's a way to follow pro athletes. So, in the same way that, pro athletes have Instagram, Strava has, pro athlete accounts where you can go follow Pogacar, and not everyone posts their power data, but some of the top pros are posting all this data where if you're really into cycling, you can like see behind the curtain in a way that's very different than, just looking on social media. But then they've also launched an affiliate program now. So that's a new feature where they have, I have an affiliate code I can give out, and you get 20% off Strava, and you get a kickback, and that's a new thing. And they've also launched, the branded challenges. So you go on there and you'll see a Kodiak cakes challenge. You could win like a box of Kodiak cakes if you they're pancakes for those who don't know. Other pancakes brands do exist out there. Um, but they have all these business opportunities, and then for smaller, so there's like top end, the branded challenges, a lot of money. Those are kind of larger businesses. The bottom end, there's like affiliates, you individuals making money off of Strava, and then in the middle, there's for bike shops, community events, and so. It's a really great place, I think, for that because everyone who uses that platform is your target audience. Know that it's okay, maybe there are some bots on there, I don't know, but instead of other social media platforms where you can create a Facebook event, and most people using Facebook are not cyclists looking for a ride on Saturday, but every all the cyclists on Strava in your area are potential opportunities. You create an event, you can drop the Strava route in there, or you could put a ride with GPS route. People can opt in, other people can see who's going. And I think that's a a cool business feature that that bike shops can take advantage of. So
Yeah, I'm just thinking about all of the ways that shops can take advantage of, and most of the features in Strava you can link out to, so you can, direct people in to the platform. Obviously when they're in the platform, the Strava wants to keep people in the platform, but um, you mentioned municipalities, and I have, in a couple times in my career, I've sort of engaged with government and helped with building bike trails and building bike paths, and I know Strava does actually, if you're a municipality, they will give you access to that data, the raw data on the heat maps, and you're absolutely right. It is super valuable for municipalities. So now, if you're a bike shop, you don't get access to that data for free. So that's not necessarily a way you can use it. But I
but
do think
you can still see on the heat map.
you can
You could
see,
be
you
like,
can absolutely, well, and
this road probably
planning.
doesn't. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
useful.
planning. Are you thinking about like a new store? Are you thinking about relocating? What a good way to think about, it's not just about, do I have enough parking in the parking lot, and is there enough of a you know drive-by traffic, from a sort of traditional site location where you're thinking about a retail location. But what is the Strava traffic? What's the heat map? What are people riding here? And I think you do get a pretty good population size from that.
Yeah, and they also have if you go on the Strava route builder, they have like known starting points. So there are little dots on the map where it's like it's a pop place where a lot of people start their rides. And I think a lot of that's just generated based on, user data. But the cool thing is if you own a bike shop and let people start your rides from there, then you're going to pop up as a ride start point, as a recommended ride start point, and that's beneficial to your business as well. And so, or if you're again, like if you're looking to move your shop and you'd be like, wow, a lot of people park in that parking lot, kind of an unexpected place to me. It's a school parking lot on a weekend. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, that's a common place for people to start their rides. And so yeah, there's a lot of useful data you can use even if you don't have the actual raw numbers.
Yeah, and I think, the for me anyway, the transition is okay. Like, this exists, like all this technology's out here. How do we use it to bring people into our store? How do we use it to provide value? We always talk about leading with value. It's a common refrain in marketing these days, is, you want to give more than you ask for. You want to be able to provide value to your customers and to your community. And with these platforms, building rides, building routes, like having, you can brand these, that can be your shop ride. And having that as like part of your strategy, I think is, whether that's on Strava or on, clubs on Strava, there's lots of ways to engage with community. There's ways to do it in combining with other platforms. So Facebook has groups, Meetup has, scheduling and event type activities. And you can reach all of these other audiences through these platforms. So it's about, picking. So prioritizing. I think one of the things like that we talk about is like, which platform is your platform. So like, I know for myself, when we're talking, I'm on not Instagram, I'm on LinkedIn. Like, that's sort of where I've built my audience. That's where I've built my largest connection, my network. I think for you, it's Instagram, right? Would you say you've
Yeah,
got a decent
definitely.
Facebook as well? Yeah. So you have to pick one.
Facebook is more like, yeah, personal friends. Instagram is definitely a platform, but even Strava, like, I think I've grown a decent enough following there probably because people are like, wow, this guy writes too much, but also because it's cool because, one of the things that's I think a benefit of following people on Strava is some people call it Strava stalking, but I like call it like if you're new to an area and you find somebody who rides there a lot, you can look, okay, you can see who's the local legend on a popular segment, and then you go into their rides and you can take one of the routes and copy it to your route page and use their routes and be like, oh, this is probably a good route to ride. Not always, but it's a really cool way. Whereas before, you'd be reliant on word of mouth, like, hey, will you show me around? It's like, in 5 minutes you can have a sweet route and, a really fun ride just from seeing what other people are doing. So
Well, and I mean, I think about that, and it's like, all right, can I as a shop, can I highlight the local legends of my area, or can I highlight the routes that local legends are riding? Are there ways that I can leverage that, that popularity of those routes, and also provide value, like give people these routes beyond, them going on the platform? I can promote Strava on my blog pages and connect
Yeah.
into the platform. I think there's a lot of value in that. Also building the community inside of the platform. I think both of those are valuable.
Yeah, and I think, if you live in an area where people are traveling there often, this is I was just in Hawaii and looked up a route, and guess where I found the route? It was on a bike shop's website because they had a whole route page, and it was an embedded this Strava route with GPS, I forget, embedded route, had a description, and I ended up on their website and I ended up going to the shop as well, and it's because they had routes on their site, and so obviously it's not always as relevant if you depending on where your shop's located, but if you're in an area that's gets a lot of tourist traffic or just seasonal traffic, whatever. It's a really really good way to it's almost an SEO tool to draw traffic to your
Yeah.
site, really, just like blogs
Well,
might be.
and I think regardless of where you are, your audience is going to have a need for getting, like if you're a local shop in a rural community, maybe it's safe routes to school. How do you, coordinate safe routes to school? If it's in the urban environment, it's commuter traffic, what are some, more scenic routes in the city? Like what are some ways, the bike paths, in Boston, it's along the Charles, and there's a bunch of bike paths in all sorts of areas around the city, but you can easily communicate that and help someone shortcut finding that on their own. You can provide that value. You can give them that, again, leading with value. So I love the idea of, you know, there's such a big ecosystem here, and there's so much that you can um, engage with when it comes to technology. I really love the idea of like you're curating this for for your customers, your existing customers, but also your potential customers. And this is probably stuff you already know. I mean, like if you've been in the community for any length of time, or you have employees that are in the community, or I mean, to me this is just like a slam dunk. And I know a lot of shops do this, so I don't want to pretend that this is like revolutionary. And if you're not, like, this is a great time of year to be doing this stuff.
Yeah. So hopefully going into 2026, there are some shops who, if you haven't gotten on this already, it doesn't take that long to put routes up on your website. You know, you know all the good routes. You probably have these routes created. Just compiling them, getting them up on your site, creating a Strava club. Just leveraging that as a community tool because yes, social media is it can be isolating, but also I think that and Strava can be tough sometimes because of the competitive side, but also there's so many ways that it helps people connect, and even just like personal heat maps, you can see all the routes you've ridden and see okay, well, and you can try and fill out your heat map and you look later and try and hit every little road and trail, which I think is cool. It's a great way for shops and for people to connect.
And I think if you approach it as a tool, like from a competitive point of view, absolutely, it's competitive, and it's like you have you know some of the top professionals in the world that are posting their results, and yeah, that can be intimidating if you're competitive. It's also, I think it can be really inclusive. So it's a way to bring people together. I think it depends on how you look at it, and sometimes it's a matter of shifting your mindset. So you could see Strava as this platform around it's being competitive, it's racing, it's high end fitness, everybody's pushing each other. Or you can it's a way for people to connect with each other. It's a way for people to get together. It's a way to bring your club together. It's a way for you to engage with folks that are looking. A lot of people are looking for a place. They're looking for, you know, uh, you know, somewhere to be welcomed. I think, we had that idea from last week talking with Kelly. And I think that those are kids that are looking for places to be welcome and looking for places to be accepted. I'll still have that. Like we're all just kids, just grown up kids. and I think if we remember that, and the bike's such a joy. I mean, it's so much fun to ride bikes. Wouldn't you want to include more people? And there's a place for everyone. And if you have, you've defined who your people are, I think you can bring more of those people in. I think it's a matter of um, just considering them and making it easier for them to get to you. I love technology as we didn't even talk about Zwift. I think like speaking of technology, like the indoor training and then the coaching, you mentioned it a little bit, the trainer road stuff, but to me, there's just such a robust ecosystem in any one of these platforms and just picking where you want to make your bets, as a business, where can you bring your business to life? Are you indoor group ride kind of shop, and is that how you're going to build community throughout the winter? So
Yeah, I think it's cool. There's a lot you can do. Doesn't cost much, if at all. And I think that it's just low hanging fruit that every shop should be doing. And I think it's also if you could for just the last thing I want to say is people who go on your website if they see that oh you got a Strava club oh you're like engaged it's a way to show you're engaged with the community show you're running these rides it's welcoming and beyond sponsoring events and stuff like that which are great, but also like those aren't evergreen. Those kind of that comes around once a year and then it's gone. Whereas group rides you can have them pop up. You can change them around indoors, outdoors, and the Strava Club's always there. So yeah, hopefully we see some more shops getting on it in 2026.
yeah, and I think you're talking about sort of like it being evergreen and events and community. These tools, I think, are part of a bigger strategy. So I think like getting clear about who your customer is and who you want to serve and what type of value you're going to bring to the community. And it's not just about, great service. It's not just about great selection. I think those are important and a lot of shops do that well, but it's about what, it's about gravel, it's about e-bikes, it's about commuting, it's about family
Added
and kids
value,
bikes.
yeah,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
added
What is it?
value in these group rides. And so when somebody's joining a shop community, I want to say buying their way into it, but they buy a bike there, they join that community, or they get their bike service there for the first time, and then suddenly a whole new world opens up.
Yeah. And just, I think sometimes it's just having that and having it available, even if they don't buy a bike from you or they don't get service. This is, how you build connections, build long-term relationships with customers. So yeah, I think, I think there's so much here, like the technology side and how it integrates with other activities. So how it integrates with your website, with your other social platforms, with existing rides, or as a catalyst for having group rides and engaging with clubs and teams that are local that you can engage with. I think, a club is probably, a really good way to connect with new people. And, how do you, I mean, I think sometimes it's challenging. How do you find the time? Where's the time come from? But focus, finding the places that you can be active, what's comfortable. Sometimes some people like no way Strava, but the community on Zwift might be easier for someone. So I think that's often can be what drives the decision making process here. So well, I appreciate you sharing. I know you have a lot of experience. If you don't mind my asking, because we're gonna continue the conversation tonight, but we'll release the episodes over. You mentioned mileage. What is it? Here we are. It's the December 18th. What is your mileage today?
I don't know. So Strava has the just like Spotify does, and apparently LinkedIn has it now, which I'm not sure I want
Yes,
to see that.
I saw that.
But there's the year-end wrap or Spotify wrap Strava. I think it's like I forget what it's called. And I haven't looked at it. I think probably 12 something thousand. I forget, but yeah, I mean it's an interesting trend to see all social media sites, including ones that are very business oriented doing that. And I mean, even businesses doing it, as almost like a spoof of the Spotify wrapped of their business trends or of like funny aspects of their business trends. So yeah, it's definitely interesting. And I think like if people want to hear more about kind of diving into these apps and how you can leverage them individually, I think there is a lot more we can do. And I'd also be interested to share kind of what some of our clients are doing with these apps to help with community development. So maybe that will be a future episode.
Yeah, well, I can tell you one future episode will be the recap year of 2025. So, so
Exactly.
we'll sign off there, and I'll talk to you in a couple of minutes. But we'll for folks that are listening, they'll get the episode in another week.
Awesome. Well, I'll talk to
Thanks,
you soon.
Chris. Talk to you soon.
Bye.